Good morning. I'm Deborah McCracken, and this is Debra Quilts Lots and Knits Bits. It happens to be the morning of Sunday, July the 7th, and this is episode 7. So how fitting that I should film episode 7 on a whim on the 7th day of the 7th month of 2019. So I have been a bit busy, so I haven't done my little podcast here for my requisite. I was going about every 3.5 weeks. I believe it's been about 5 weeks now since you last saw me. So if you're new, I'm coming to you from Penticton, British Columbia in Canada. And I'm a long arm quilter who loves to work on other people's quilts, and I love to make quilted project bags, and I am beginning to knit. Actually, I'm in the thick of knitting. I'm not beginning. So just going to fill you in a little bit on what I have been up to, because I've been busy. I am still filling in at Poppins Quilt Parlour. Tomorrow will be the beginning of week 15 of my 4 to 6 week stint, and I'm still having a great time. I love it. I enjoy it. Barb, the owner, was away this weekend, took a few days off to do some stuff, and so we had a little Bosses Away sale, and it was fun. So, but tomorrow morning we are back to regular scheduled programming, and there's a couple of boxes of new fabric to open up. There's tons and tons and tons of new Christmas stuff coming in, and it's just awesome. And there's so many people in town visiting. We had people from Alaska and Ohio and England and Australia this week, and Germany. So, you know, if you're in Penticton doing some wine tours, checking out the beach, hop into the quilt shop, Poppins Quilt Parlour. Anyway, I thought I would come and talk to you a little bit about my knitting, and I've got a lot more knitting to show you than I do quilting this time, simply because it's just been crazy. So anyway, you've seen my Papillon butterfly shawl before, and I don't know, for some reason I'm a little chilly this morning in the basement, so I thought I would throw that on over my shoulders because it's a nice, just throw it on. I've been wearing it on the deck, and it's quite nice. Anyway, I have something finished, finally. This is my Cullum Tee by Isabel Kramer. It's got this little lace detail across the front, and I don't know if you'll be able to see. There we go. There's a little lace detail through the hem. And I made this out of the all hemp for knitting, fingering weight yarn. And it was really nice to work with. I did wash it before I wound it into balls. I just rinsed it out, and it took something that I read suggested that you give it a rinse with a little bit of wool wash or hair conditioner, and that just takes more of the starchy stuff out and softens it up a little bit to work with. So I did enjoy it. I didn't do that with the last hemp project I did, and I did enjoy this a little bit better. So, and since this was after my 6th attempt of casting on, it's done. It's done, and I have worn it. I think I might, looking at the pattern today, apparently there's a little detail where you pick up the stitches here and do something to the neckline. So I might try that, and if that doesn't work, I may just take a little tuck, like a little pleat in the back, because it seems to have grown on me. And if I knit another one again, which is quite possible, I would probably just knit a size smaller. This was the 3rd size up, so I think it had extra small, small, medium, so this was the medium. But it's very soft and it's actually quite cool. I'm loving it for this. We've had a few hot days this summer, not as many as usual, but I really like it. And I got this little bralette at Beaches Lingerie down the street from the store on Main Street in Penticton. And I thought, oh, that's just the perfect color. So it kind of looks like it goes. Anyway, that is my finished object. Yay! I do have a project page for it on Ravelry, so if you're that curious about it, you can find it there under Debra Quilts Lots on Ravelry. My next project I am working on is, this is the back of my Ixtapa sweater, and here she is. Here's what it looks like when my page, with my printer running out of ink. So when I saw this I saw it on the River City Yarns podcast, the two sisters from Edmonton that have a shop called River City Yarns. So I contacted my bestest yarn buddy at So Much More in New Denver. I said, oh, what have you got that I could make this out of? And she said, I have exactly that Louette Euroflax, 100% wet spun linen. I'm in heaven. Again, she told me, just give it a rinse and let it dry before you wind it. And it's honest to goodness, it's so soft right now. I can't wait to get this done. This little lace edging detail is very, very simple and easy to remember. And so this has been my beach knitting. And obviously I haven't been to the beach much because I've been working. So oftentimes we'll go down to the beach with a little beverage or an ice cream cone in the evening, and I take that with me. And I have it in my little puzzle bag. We made these at our day guild with Fran. She's one of our quilters that we get during the spring and fall season. She goes down south for the winter. So last 2018, I guess, we had a little class with her with this puzzle bag. And it's completely reversible. I made it out of a charm pack, I think it was by Kate Spain, that I had, and I thought, oh, I love these colors. So, and then I just have my little tape measure, and it actually claims it's your card keeper for the casino. I don't go to the casino very much other than swipe our cards, and quite often we get a 2-for-1 buffet, 2-for-1 entree, which is right up my husband's alley because he likes the 2-for-1 thing. And the buffet, he could eat and eat and eat. And the food there is really good. It's very well cooked, so you don't need your teeth. I'm kidding. On Father's Day, we went for the buffet, and the prime rib that they served was actually melt in your mouth. It was very tasty. So there you go. So project number 2 that is in process, because even though I said I wasn't going to start a whole bunch of knitting things, I started a whole bunch of knitting things. Well, not a bunch. I've got 2, and then I've got a dishcloth on the go, which I didn't bring that down, but because it's not very far, it doesn't really matter too much. Anyway, when I was at Yarn Okanagan on June 1st, they had a marketplace in the Laurel Packing House downtown, which is quite a nice spot. However, the air conditioning was not working, and I got there about 10:30 in the morning, and a lot of people were very warm. And when I was actually standing in line to pay for my yarn, one lady, she says, I gotta get out of the line. She says, I'm gonna pass out. I have to go outside. And I'm like, oh no. Like, you know, I almost wanted to put my down and go out with her, but I was almost there. And I watched her. She made it okay. And she did come back in. So, but, yeah, it was a very crowded spot. And, so they sent out a little survey. So I answered quite honestly. You know, it was a really nice event, but yeah, it was like the vendors were awesome and the people were awesome, and it wasn't like super crowded. It was like you could move around and you could see the things you wanted to see. So, you know, I definitely go back. But you know, it wasn't a place I would spend all day because it was hot and crowded enough that I wasn't super comfortable. But anyway, that's just me. So I picked up this yarn. I don't think I showed this. I don't think I've podcast since I was there. So this is a color adventure, and it's by Anna Diomina. I'll put a link to the website in the show notes. And this was a DK weight, and this color was called Birch. I don't know if you can see it, but it is like this silvery taupey gray that is very, very lush. So out of that, I am knitting. Sorry, I did think everything was within reach today. The Pure Comfort cardigan. So it's got the big shawl collar on it, and it's nice and long with some pockets, long sleeves. And it is a pattern from Biscotte yarns, and it's free pattern. So I will put a link to that in the show notes. And it's pretty easy so far, as long as you're reading the pattern. I got so far and I had to take it down to Charlotte in New Denver and say, what am I doing wrong? And I was increasing in the wrong spot all over the place. So now that I know how to make a UFO shape, I could design a shawl. Anyway, this is how it's knitting up. And I've got these, it's the raglan shoulders. So that's the top, and it's gonna go down like that. And I'm alternating skeins, so I'm getting some very cool bits of color, and I think it's gonna be absolutely gorgeous. The yarn is it's 100% superwash merino, and it is 115 grams and 229 meters. So it's really quite nice. And it's going to be a really nice fabric when it's done, and very cozy. So looking forward to getting that finished. And while I was at Yarn Okanagan, I met a celebrity. Kind of fangirled a bit. And I went up and I talked and I talked and I talked, and pretty soon I had said something that I had never meant to say. Anyway, I met Kelsey from K-Zip Knits. She and her friend Glenda do a podcast from Wet Coast Wools in Vancouver. They are a yarn shop there. And this Cullum Tee I originally saw on their podcast back in December, January. So I went up to talk to her. I said, oh, you know, I've been thinking about using this for a special project for Christmas, and so I'm so glad that you're here, blah, 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 blah. And Kelsey's a musician. She plays the violin, and she talks about that once in a while. And So in my past days, when I turned 30, I thought I should learn to play the violin because my grandpa had played a little bit, and my grandpa played every instrument under the sun. So I took lessons for a few years, and then we moved from Calgary to Castlegar, and I took some more lessons there. I actually passed my grade 3 Royal Conservatory violin exam. Not with honors or anything like that, but it's quite a harrowing experience to be an adult and go and do these things. When I was a kid and I did figure skating exams and stuff like that, my mom was always just so nervous, and I'm like, oh, what's the big deal? And then I go in to do these Royal Conservatory exams because I did my grade 2 when I was in Calgary. And then I did grade 3 when I was in Castlegar. So these wonderful people in the Cooties helped me with my exam and accompaniment and all kinds of stuff. And it was nerve-wracking to walk into those exams as an adult and know that you've worked hard for something and now it's all on the line and you're being tested for it. And it's like, oh my God. So then, after that, I went to fiddle camp. The Old Time Fiddlers, the Kootenai chapter, puts on a fiddle camp in Castlegar at Selkirk College in the middle of July every year. And that was the first, I think I went for the first 3 years. And so, anyway, it's so much fun. You learn by ear, so you got to find a 12-year-old to help you remember stuff. And, you know, nobody cares whether you nod or you miss a note as long as you're there playing and trying and having fun and have a big smile on your face. So if you are even thinking of learning how to play a fiddle, or they do have guitar and keyboards, I believe. I mean, they did then. It's been about 15 years, so check it out. And I know, like, there was one fellow the first year, and he had gotten his fiddle the day before. He showed up. Well, he went in the beginner class, and they played for the recital at the end. They played like 3 songs very, very, very well. And then the next year, Gary was in my intermediate class, you know, and we'd learned 3 or 4 songs and a little bit more involved, but, you know, not terribly difficult. And then in the 3rd year, Gary was in the advanced class. He just practiced and practiced and practiced and practiced and practiced. And, you know, having retired from his job, really was having fun with it. And once in a while I would go in the evening, and there was a group of fellows and musicians that got together and played, and they just had fun. And, you know, it was a lot of fun to go, and wasn't intimidating at all because, you know, you just went to have a good time. So anyway, I digress. So I go up to Kelsey and I start talking to her and tell her how I watch her podcast. I really enjoy it. I'd seen this yarn and I really wanted to get some. And then I said, and I'm a fiddle player too. And she's like, oh, really? She's took me seriously. So, you know, I almost feel like I got to pull that fiddle out and get some fiddling in. So, you know, it's something I may do when I'm finished working every day. And we'll see. Don't count on me playing on my podcast because it's not going to happen. But anyway, she did offer lots of helpful advice, and said if I was interested in looking for a teacher here in Penticton, because this is where she grew up, that she'd be more than happy to help me out finding somebody, and just to shoot her an email. And I'm like, wow, you know, crafting people are so generous, and when you have a common interest with somebody, they just want for you to succeed and be good at things, and that's very, very, very cool. We had a conversation like that at the quilt store yesterday about just wanting to share with each other and being, just be generous with your time and your knowledge and ask questions to somebody, to everybody, because you might get a different answer, but you might get the answer that works for you. So beyond all that, that was the first weekend in June. Then the third weekend in June, I went to New Denver to Fibrefeelia Fest, and what a blast. I got up there on Friday afternoon and I went to Kathy's shop at So Much More, and I looked around and I almost bought fabric even, because she had great fabric I've never seen before. And I didn't buy any fabric, but I should have. I didn't buy any fabric there. Let's requalify that. But anyway, I looked around and I hummed and hawed over yarn, and then I knew there was going to be a marketplace at Fibrefeelia Fest the next day. So I only bought this. This is the Malabrigo in Lotus. And oh my God, it's so gorgeous. And it is the Pure Merino Superwash, 100 grams, approximately 210 yards, so DK weight, because I thought I could make a fade cardi, and I thought I might hold my purple that I have left over from my begonia leaf that I have left over from my shawl here. I thought I might hold that double and start a fade, but anyway, I can't find it. Because of course I didn't actually grab that, so that would be that little bit there. So I don't know how that's going to work out yet. So that was my first purchase for the weekend. So that's my Malabrigo. Then I went into the vendor mall and I scouted around a few times, and then I got to talk to the lady from West Coast Color. If you recall, last year at Fibrefeelia Fest, she was very kind to me and could see I was a rookie. And when I had my little magazine, she said, oh, you know, those yarns, you need to use some cellulose fiber because those blah, blah, blah. Anyway, that's how I ended up with all the hemp. And I did get some sock yarn from her, which was absolutely wonderful to work with. It was so soft and squishy and beautiful. And so this one I bought from her. I bought a couple skeins, and it is 100% superwash merino and fits of giggles too. So again, a DK weight, and the color is called Purple Rain. And heavens to Betsy, it just drew me in right from the start. So I got a couple skeins of that to go with my Malabrigo, which I just threw on the floor. And then, so we'll see what happens. They might not end up in the same sweater. They might not end up in the same shawl. I might have to just get some more of each to make sweater of their own. Because I thought maybe that it would go nicely with this one. But it's a little bit different, so I don't know if my experience helps me, my non-experience helps me to get to where I'm going with that. And then I did get this one at the West Kootenay Quilt Conference. I got this one from Linden Yarns in Grand Forks, and unfortunately she's closing down. But so who knows? I seem to be on this purpley, plummy, turquoisey journey this this year. So I had also a shopping list to get some stuff. I needed some cotton for the Cozy Up Knit Shrug Again, and I needed some fingering weight to make some shawls and some socks for Christmas. And my friend Charlotte, she goes, oh, she says, do you think you'd finish these if you took them home? And they were sweaters that she bought back in, or sweaters that she started back in the day. And so she had this one in this beautiful navy blue cotton. And she had the front and the back almost finished. And I looked at it and I said, oh yeah, I could finish that. And then I realized that I had lied. So, and then the other sweater that she gave me was very, very like tiny fingering weight wool with this beautiful textured sweater, but it didn't come with a pattern. So I think she just kind of gave me license to use the yarn. And then when I looked at the cotton sweater, I'm trying to find a year on this magazine. I'm sure it's from the 80s, which is the same era of the last time somebody said to me, oh, could you probably take this home and finish it? And I ended up with my mom's sweater. So thank you, Charlotte. I was able to replace her wool with some fibers because she is doing some amazing spinning. And so she bought some fleeces to do some spinning to make the yarn to knit up sweaters for her granddaughter, Z. And while we were there, it was her granddaughter's 7th birthday, and she Skyped, or FaceTimed, and while she was opening up her gift. And her gift from her grandma was a little knitted bunny who had a sweater on that matched the sweater that grandma made her. And in the pocket of the sweater, there was a teeny tiny knitted bunny. Well, the look on that kid's face as she is opening that up, she was so excited and squealing, and it was like, oh my God, that is the coolest. So grandmas and grandpas and aunties and uncles, you know, you don't have to spend $300 on an Xbox. A little tiny knitted bunny that you spent a couple hours, maybe 30 hours on, is just as appreciated. And she can take her little bunny everywhere she goes and say, hey, look what my grandma made me. Anyway, my grandmas used to make me stuff, and I was always very appreciative, especially the variegated wool, crocheted, shell stitch, I think, or clam stitch, ponchos. I remember having each grandma make me a different variegated yarn colored poncho one year, and I wore those everywhere. So that's about it for my knitting. I'm getting a bit more knitting done these days simply because my brain is fried when I get home from working, and I never expected that. And you know, it's okay. I've come to the conclusion that I'm not 20 years old anymore. I can't work 3 jobs, do this, that, and the other thing, and still be ready to party. I could work 1 job. I can sometimes come home and do a little bit more work at home, and then I'm ready to go to bed. We went out for Frank's birthday last week, and it was funny because we were in a place, and they had a band started playing, and there were 10 of us, and it was quite funny how everybody's like, do you guys want to go somewhere else and get something to eat? Because nobody could hear each other talk. And then, so we did that. And then we were all finished, and then somebody commented, oh, well, it's 8:30. Oh, really? Already? Oh, gosh, it's getting late. So we all went our separate ways, and yeah. Yeah. Anyway, that's the way it is. So, on to quilting. Now, I've been quilting other people's stuff, but I haven't been going at the pace that I usually go at. Last weekend, I did get 4 jobs done. We quilted 2 quilts, and it was because it was a long weekend, 3 days. And I had cut out already, but I also worked off a BQ5. And the lady that picked out all the fabric for it, pardon me, hasn't picked the quilt up yet. So I will share pictures on Instagram and Facebook of the whole quilt when she actually picks it up, because that's my thing. I don't think I should share with anybody else until the owner gets it. Anyway, she picked out all this fabric for her sister, who is a quilter and is having some medical issues, so she thought a nice, bright, happy quilt would help things out a little bit. And she picked up this Philip Jacobs poppy fabric. It's called Poppy Garden, and it's just beautiful. So we have it on the shelf at Poppins still. There's a bit left. And so yeah, that was the main fabric in the BQ5. The BQ5 is from Maple Island Designs, and they have now BQ6. So they've got 6 different patterns that you can use, very large, beautiful prints, and you don't have to cut them up too much. And they're very big blocks, and they go together quite quickly. So I had it all cut out, and I got all the piecing done in one day, and then I got it quilted and bound the next day. So, you know, if you're looking for a project that goes pretty good. And at the shop, Barb and I made a BQ6 one afternoon. I cut it out, and as I was cutting, she was sewing, and we would have had the pieces sewn together. We only did 6 blocks just to make a sample quilt. Had I handed her the pieces in the correct order and we didn't have to stop and pick out a few seams, we probably would have had the thing pieced together in 40 minutes. So anyway, you can stop by the shop and see that one, because it's just folded under my table at the store. And the other thing that I did, Carl and I were talking the other day, and he was talking about making some placemats for an auction for a club that he's part of. And on the other part of the, I don't know if he's going to do that, I haven't decided yet. So anyway, I had this panel, and it's called Life is Better at the Beach. So I said, well, I don't really want the sailboat and the whale on the panel. I said, so you're welcome to have those if you want. And so we made trade a couple more of these out of the other panel. Anyway, so I had some beautiful bright fabric, and actually I made Frank choose the backing fabric because I had another choice that was a little less loud, but pretty anyway. And then I put in, I just put some interfacing. I attached it to the front. I put a few strips of fabric onto the edges. And so it was the Papillon fusible featherweight, and it was the 911 weight. It's actually, it's stiff, but it's not too stiff, and it's not too light. So I just ironed that on, sewed it right sides together, and left an opening, which I haven't. I figured I'd get that with my top stitching, and I trimmed all of the seams down. I used a 1/4 inch seam, and then I trimmed them down to 1/8 of an inch, except for this little part with the opening, so I'd have a little bit more to work with. So I had a 1/4 inch to work with. Anyway, trimmed all the seams down, turned it, and pressed it with the iron, and I think I'm going to have some very nice placemats for my patio table. So life is better at the beach. I'll let you know when I get there. It's very fun in the evening to go down and just people watch. you know, and we just, my husband talks to everybody. And we met a fellow from Edmonton who plays the banjo at dances, and he was just fun to talk to. And you know, he really reminded me of my dad and stuff. And that was right around Father's Day, so it was kind of cool. And what else has been going on? Oh, I am listening to the second book of The Wheel of Time. I heard about it on the Cozy Up Knits podcast. Just Sarah, the sister, one of the sisters, just mentioned it in passing. And I thought, well, you know, I've got nothing on the go right now, so I will look it up. So I listened to the book one, and the narrator was talking very monotone, blah, blah, blah. So the first couple hours I was busy doing other stuff, so I didn't just shut it off. But after a while, I got really into the story, and I couldn't stop, couldn't wait to get to the next part. And they're like, each book's, this one I think is 29 hours. Anyway, so I'm about halfway through the second book. And while I was waiting for the second book to come from the library, because I listened to it on the Overdrive app from the public library, I went on to Audible, and I got Remarkable Creatures by Tracy Chevalier. And what a great book. Like, she really does her research, and it was all about finding fossils in the 1800s on the coast of England, and pretty cool. So if you want to just have a very, well, it was a light read, but it was very empowering for women, I guess, in the time. And there's a lot of just, you know, going back and forth between the classes and that kind of thing. I recently listened to The Last Runaway by Tracy Chevalier, and that was suggested in the So Sweetness book club. And it talked about the Underground Railroad and the use of quilts. So in that whole system. So anyway, Tracy Chevalier, I think she's just a really good author, does tons of research, and The Wheel of Time, and I can't remember what the fellow's name is, but there's a series of books, and the story's quite, it kind of grabs you, and you just want to find out what's going to happen next. So I am going to spend the rest of my day quilting on a little quilt and doing a few household chores, and maybe when Fred gets home, I'll have supper ready, and maybe we'll take it down to the beach and have a picnic. So that would be awesome. So I'm hoping that you'll have a great Sunday afternoon and a wonderful week ahead of you. Enjoy your July, and happy stampeding, all of my Calgary friends. I'm jealous. I miss Stampede Week, and I should just come and spend the week when it's on, because Stampede Week in Calgary, everybody's having fun everywhere you go, and lots of times when anything goes. Anyway, it's just so much fun to go. So I will leave you with that, and we'll see you in a few weeks, in a month. See how it goes. Okay. Happy quilting, happy knitting, happy summertime holidaying, and enjoy. Just realized I didn't even talk about the quilt behind me. This is the Passages Quilt. It is a pattern by The Guilty Quilter. He's the fellow that designed the Labyrinth Walk as well. And this is the class that we had on Saturday at Fibrefeelia Fest. And if you're watching my Facebook page, you could see that Phyllis had done her she got her first set of blocks done, which everybody in class got their first set of blocks done. And Phyllis stayed over, took an extra day and did the other blocks as well, the second set of blocks. So her quilt went together quite nicely, and then she decided that she wanted to change things, so she made another set of these blocks, and the quilt looked completely different. So I did post those pictures on the Facebook page, probably on June 24th-ish. So if you want to scroll back and take a look at those, that's pretty awesome. So anyway, next year, Fibrefeelia Fest is June 20th and 21st. And we talked about the possibility of doing a 2-day quilting class. So if you want to come and get set up and kind of have 2 days to sew on the same project, and then spend some time at the yarn tasting, maybe. This year it was Saturday evening, and I think that worked out really well. And take some time to enjoy the area and get some quilting in. It'd be great. It'd be great to see you. Anyway, we'll talk to you soon.